Okay, so how long have you been working with people on the methadone program?
I've been working about 14 years now.
Holy.
Yeah.
And prior to getting into all of this, did you have any like stereotypes or preconceptions about people on methadone before this that you
yes.
no longer have now?
Oh yes, I definitely did.
How did those change within?
Well, I was probably a pretty typical doctor. I wasn't aware how much addiction was actually a problem because it's hidden away, and most doctors are not trained in looking after addicts nor identifying them. So nowadays, I know they're all around us, but most doctors don't see them. So by the time they identify one, they kind of overreact, they stereotype, and I was one of them. My previous job was working in ICU, operating room, you know, so I figured I was a pretty good doctor. What happened was I injured my arm, and I couldn't work, but I got so bored, people said, hey, you're the one that resuscitated all these overdoses, so you must know a lot about opiates. Therefore, why don't you be at the front line and treat these? And my first response at that time was, what kind of a doctor do you think I am? You know? And I'm a good doctor, because in those days I just pictured you must be an alcoholic to want to treat one.
Yeah.
So, but I got so bored with the paralyzed arm that I said, okay, I'll give it a try, simply because I could sit there and talk with the patient, and that's how I got started. And through that process, I found that I was quite surprised. 80% of the people were normal people, but just, you know, I had a bad experience in the past. And I'm also trained in cognitive behavior therapy.
Right.
So I started applying that in this field, and we discovered a heck of a lot about this. The origin of it, we now know it doesn't start, you know, at the time they use drugs. They're preconditioned, you know, some as young as 4 to 8 years old, you know, to head in that direction.
Well, yeah, because a lot of that happens from the early years.
Exactly.
That kind of influences them.
And these are new findings that most doctors don't even know. And a lot of our doctors have not paid much attention to addiction, when in fact the evidence is all over the place. So I found it very interesting that this area is not well explored, and therefore we've gone into it quite a bit in depth.
Were you kind of wary at first about it, like kind of
Oh,
when you
yes.
first got here? How long did it take for you
Oh,
to kind
yes.
of cancel out those stereotypes?
Well, it took a while to cancel it, but just to tell you the precaution I took, I made sure I did not work anywhere near the city I lived in.
Oh, wow.
Because I was afraid my family might be in danger, right?
Yeah.
Stereotyping, and I was afraid that you know, they come to my house and rob me or something. And as I've discovered, a lot of doctors I meet today still think that way. And once again, I'm not surprised, because I went through that process.
For sure.
And since knowing the patients, I've discovered they're just normal people. They made a mistake at one time. They were kind of trapped, and not allow. Society actually doesn't allow them to go back to normal life, and as a result, they had to deal with it, and they had to adopt some very unusual measures that, you know, could get into crime. How do you support it? To support that habit costs about $30,000 a year. Excuse me. Learn, which we're trying to teach other people, is the average addict actually uses about $30,000 to $50,000 a year.
Holy.
Yeah,
And,
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, and you can see most people cannot earn that much money.
On methadone treatments or on their addiction?
Before they
got it.
before they get into it.
Holy.
And people, those are people without jobs. Now, we did analysis and we found out people with jobs, it's $50,000 to $100,000.
Oh my gosh.
We had one contractor, $300,000 a year was how much it was spent.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of money, and it affects not just the individual that's an addict, it affects his whole family. You know, life saving is gone. You know, they go home and TV's missing. All the life saving it has been drained away, and family members have no idea. So it really destroys families. Yeah.
So, do you get a lot of patients coming in complaining about stigma that they receive, like, or fear of coming onto the program because they think that they're going to be labeled, or anything of the such?
Yeah. They're not, at the time they come on to our program, they've gone through a lot of hardship already.
Mm-hmm.
And their biggest struggle is admitting that they have failed. Because our patients, they don't want to fail. They don't want to be a drug addict. They don't want to know that they're bad enough to need help. So for them to just come through the door is a major effort. And at that point, they're so desperate, they really don't worry about the stigma. They're
Right.
just fighting with themselves, saying, how could I ever get myself to this position?
Mm-hmm.
And quite a lot of them break down, you know. And we have to sort of say it's the right thing to do, sort of reassure them that we can help them and not to give up on themselves, because to them, suicide is one of the options. The death rate amongst our patients is very high. Every 200 patient ends up dead every single year. And that's quite, those are quite high numbers. Yeah. Statistics, in my opinion, should have been studied and broadcast to the doctors even. They weren't available. So we had to actually do a lot of research on our own, and that's helped us understand addiction quite a bit. We now understand, you know, why crime rate is so high in this area. And we've taken advantage of that, because now that we realize how much money is required by a drug addict, we contact the police department to find out how much crime is involved with drug addiction. And not to our surprise, they said the majority of petty crime is drug related. So what we predicted was, by having a methadone program, the crime rate would drop. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And once we got that statistics, we were able to approach the police department and say, hey, we can work together on this, you know. And the ones that are open-minded welcome us. So that's what's necessary. And we checked into the court system and the jail system. To put someone in jail costs about $80,000 a year. For females, around $120,000 a year. And apparently the legal system is just running out of money. They can't throw any more people into jail. And as a result, we said, you know, they have to support a program like harm reduction, like methadone program. So it's not a popular program, but people are starting to recognize it is necessary as a harm reduction
Do
program.
you see it getting, like, over the 14 years you've worked in it, do you see it getting more and more popular?
People are less stigmatized,
Yeah.
you know, amongst themselves about the program. They now realize that they're going to get better, as opposed to being, they used to say it was liquid handcuff. Once you get on methadone,
Yeah,
you're
you're pretty much
locked.
just providing them with their drug. Yeah.
Exactly, but now some of them are starting to realize they're getting their lives back. So we have a lot of people who are now back to work. 60% of patients are back working,
Wow.
which is totally
That's-
unexpected.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a good
That's
number.
a good outcome.
Yeah, well now in our clinic, it's standard. This is not, when we first discovered this, it was thought to be kind of high, but we have 11 clinics now, and our expectation, every clinic should meet 60% employment, or else the doctor's not doing their job, you know. So why do we get good statistics? I think it's because it isn't that we make them good citizen. I think these are good citizens that became hooked on drugs, and therefore they lost their job. When you get them back to normal, they want to get a job.
Yeah.
They want their family back. So to me, we didn't create these addicts to be better. They were normal people that wanted to get back to normal life. And when we allowed them to go back, they gladly went back.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Does the clinic offer any other, like, adjunct services for addiction or anything?
Well, counseling is probably the most important.
Yeah.
Methadone's important, but what we view it as, methadone makes the body symptom, the physical symptom disappear. Aches, pains, vomiting, sweating, diarrhea. If you have those symptoms, you can't learn anything. And drug addicts, they're always having symptoms like that they take the drug to, get rid of those symptoms. But once you're on methadone, those symptoms are gone. But addiction, what we teach is 80%'s up here. So this is where the counseling is the major part of the treatment program. Unfortunately, doctors aren't very good at it yet. We're starting to learn. And as a result, that's the area that we're putting most of work in. Is
Do you refer
studying
people
methods.
to outer addiction services like
We used to.
Forecast or something like that?
We used to. And the unfortunate thing is, we found that they were just as inexperienced as we were.
Oh.
And as a result, we started doing our own research, and we found that there's special techniques that are necessary for drug addicts that are not used anywhere else. To give you an example, the most counseling services are good for anxiety, depression, maybe panic attack.
Mental health disorders.
Yeah, mental health disorder. Our patients have all of them. They all have anxiety, they all have depression, they all have panic, they all are suicidal. This is a different type of treatment than someone that's used to treating one or the other. So this is why addiction from us, you got to get prepared for all of them.
For sure.
So it's a special approach we have. So now we have developed our own techniques, and we're actually traveling across Canada teaching people how to do these techniques. So we've got some recognition through the College of Family Practice, and we're trying to get as many lectures as possible to university. It hasn't been quite recognized as a science yet, but with all the breakthrough, those who are involved in counseling, they're starting to recognize that we've got some pretty good techniques that they weren't aware of.
Wow.
Yeah.
What kind of things do you cover in your lectures? Just like the stigma of it, or like the process?
Not so much the stigma. What we want them to do is be strong enough that the stigma doesn't bother them. We have them accept the fact that they are drug addicts. Stop hiding it. Drug addiction is terrible. Accept it. But in accepting isn't to say that you're defeated. Accepting is to say that's the past. Tomorrow's going to be different. So what we teach them is they have control over tomorrow. No sense fighting about the past or hiding about the past. So therefore accept it and deal with it. So we first teach them tools, how to handle stress, how to handle boredom, how to handle the wrong people around them. And when they get good at that, and it only takes about 4 weeks for them to learn, they now have some control over their environment. Once they have a bit of control over their environment, then we emphasize career, reestablishing with families, enjoying life.
Developing connections apart from anything.
Exactly.
Your drugs.
And once they have that, they gain back their confidence again. And this is where we found, we thought initially we had to do counseling for all of them. What we found is the majority of them, once you get their confidence back, they
can do it themselves.
They can do it themselves. They find their own job. They call up their family on their own, So that's very, very pleasant to discover. But what we find is 10-20% does need counseling. So the good news is not everybody needs counseling. 60-80% will be strong enough if they have confidence. But the 20%, we're getting fairly high success rate. If you look on the wall there, you see some posters on the wall there.
Yeah.
Picture. Those are testimonials from patients that took counseling, got better.
Okay.
And the reason why we had those up there is to tell the new patients not to give up.
Yeah.
Because many of the
They
new
can do it.
patients-
You can.
Exactly. Many new patients cannot believe that there's any life left over, that things aren't worth it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if they see other people get over it,
Exactly.
they can do it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're very concerned about that high suicide rate. 1,200 is very
Yeah,
high.
that's very
Exactly.
significant.
So far, we've had almost no suicide because
It's
what
getting
we really emphasize is give them hope,
Mhm.
and the suicide rate seems to drop quite
Well, that's
dramatically.
Oh, that's awesome. I know in another town, a friend of mine that is on methadone, and his clinic offers him no counseling services at
Yeah.
all. Like, get in, get your drink, get out.
Exactly.
Thanks, have a nice day. And then he's okay with his withdrawal symptoms at the time, but he has no, they're not teaching him any skills of how to
Exactly.
deal with his life. So
Yeah. That shows you how immature this type of service has been.
For sure.
Because medical school never taught us any of it. So to me, that's part of the evolutionary process that doctors have to go through.
Mhm.
We have to sort of first learn how to use methadone, then we find out we could do a little more, and we add the counseling.
Mhm.
And then later on we'll find out that maybe we should work with the police force or manpower to get them jobs. So to me, it's an evolutionary process, and doctors are learning too. So I just happen to enjoy the learning.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Probably have enough for the video. We can end
Yeah.
it.